Hello everybody, welcome to tonight's event that is entitled Citizen Soldiers in a Changing World, a conversation with your Army Reserve Brigade Commander. My name is Kelly Saunders and I'm Professor and Chair in the Department of Political Science, a colleague of Professor Chris Hunt's, and I'm going to be serving as your host for this evening. So I'd like to begin, first of all, tonight's event with some welcoming remarks and some comments from Professor Greg Gation. There is Greg right here. Greg is the Acting Vice President Academic at Brandon University, and Professor Gation will also be providing a land acknowledgement. Greg?
Thank you so much, Dr. Saunders. Brandon University is situated on Treaty 1 and Treaty 2 lands, and tonight as we gather in this beautiful space, we're on Treaty 2 lands. These are shared traditional homelands of the Dakota Oyate, the Anishinaabe, and the Red River Métis. And of course today many other indigenous people call Brandon their home, including the Innu, the Anishinaabe, the Dene Sulin, and the Inuit. We are grateful to these people for their hospitality and ongoing patience, and recognize how fortunate we are to live, work, and learn together in this beautiful place. So, on behalf of the university, I welcome you. I welcome our esteemed guest. I know that our president, Dr. Bovis Kanassen, would want me to express her regret for not being here tonight. I grew up, this is really an aside, but I grew up most of my youth on the east coast of Canada, where the Canadian military was a kind of ubiquitous presence. So I grew up in Halifax, so mostly Navy, but it was sort of a regular part of the cycle of life. And as a musician, I grew up influenced by some of the musicians who were based in the Stadacona band in Halifax. In welcoming all of you here, I feel it's important for me to express some thanks. So I want to thank the staff of the Library and Archives for being our incredible hosts and opening up this space for events like this. I want to thank Nick Brown for being a tireless source of support. I want to acknowledge and thank our incredible Department of Political Science students. So many of you, I'm sure, are students in the Political Science Department, and the incredible faculty. In particular, I want to thank Professor Chris Hunt, who is seated to my right. He provided me with really great notes to help me get a sense of what tonight was about. He's been he's an alumni, I think graduated with a degree in political science in 2012, which for you probably seems so long ago, but for me, it was like kind of mid-career. He's incredibly engaged and incredibly generous, so thank you so much, Chris, for the work that you do. And the departmental colleagues, Dr. Baker, Dr. Saunders, and I'm going to include Dr. McCullough, are really exceptional colleagues, so we're very lucky to have them here. And lastly, of course, thank you for being here to participate. If it weren't for you, this would be a very lonely event. So thank you so much, and thanks for including me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor Gation. Now I would like to introduce our distinguished guests. I kind of feel like I'm fangirling up here a little bit. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, Kelly, try to be a little bit more professional. I'll begin with Colonel Kotzer. Colonel Evelyn Kotzer enrolled in the Regular Force Officer Training Program, graduating from the Royal Military College of Canada in 2000 with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. Very, very impressive. As a junior officer, she held different positions with 1 CMBG HQ in Signals, 1 Service Battalion, Canadian Forces Joint Signal Regiment, and finally Canadian Forces School of Communications and Electronics, where she completed her regular force service in 2009. Starting her primary reserves career that same year at 772 Electronic Warfare Squadron, Colonel Kotzer then moved to Winnipeg, where she has held almost every regimental and squadron officer position, up to and including Regimental Commanding Officer of 38th Signal Regiment. In July 2022, she was appointed as the Deputy Commander of 38 Canadian Brigade Group, 38 CBG, while also working for the Royal Canadian Air Force as the A5 in 2 Canadian Air Division. I had to get Chris to explain what all these words and acronyms meant. Operationally, Colonel Kotzer deployed on domestic Operation Grizzly in the Kananaskis Mountains in 2002, as well as Op Unifier 2402 as the Executive Officer to the Assistant Commander Training for NATO Security Assistance and Training Ukraine, NSAT-U, located in Germany. Colonel Kotzer is a graduate of the Joint Command and Staff Program. In 2020, she stood up the 38 Canadian Brigade Group Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee on behalf of the Brigade Commander to champion culture growth through awareness and learning opportunities throughout the brigade. She has also served as an honorary aide-de-camp to the Lieutenant Governor of Manitoba from 2015 to 2025. Colonel Kotzer was promoted to her current rank of Colonel and appointed as Commander 38th Canadian Brigade Group in April of 2025. Colonel Kotzer is greatly supported by her husband, Lieutenant Colonel retired Clayton Kotzer, and 4 wonderful children, Riley, Brody, Grace, and Fiona. Beyond her military career, she enjoys playing music with her family, fitness, hiking, and numerous sports, while dedicating her extra time, you have extra time, on top of all of your responsibilities, to volunteering in her community. I'd like to welcome Colonel Kotzer to the podium and invite her to share a few words with us.
Well, thank you, everyone, and it is wonderful to be here in Brandon, at Brandon University, to be able to speak to all of you and your wonderful young minds that are learning about political science. I just want to make one note on political science. So I went to the Royal Military College of Canada. You heard that I got an engineering degree, and I can tell you the one stream of courses that I avoided like the plague would have been political science. So for me to be here and have the privilege to talk in front of all of you is a complete 180 from where I started over, well, it's almost 32 years ago. So really, really privileged to be here. But I will tell you that my mind has changed, and being an active member in the Canadian Armed Forces, it really changes your perspective on political science, especially as you grow in rank and you realize how much everything in the world affects everything that you do as a military member. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a little bit about myself. I know that my bio was read, and thank you very much. It was thorough and everything. But I want to talk about the experience that I have that really has shaped me, and some of the things that I've learned. So I know I went to the Royal Military College Canada, it said that and everything, but the biggest thing, the first big thing that I did was when I got out of that training environment and learning environment, I went to, I got posted to Edmonton to 1 Canadian Mechanized Brigade Group, headquarters and signal squadron, and I was a troop commander there. So the first big thing that I did actually was not the Kananaskis mission that we did in the Kananaskis Valley for Op Grizzly. Op Grizzly was the same thing as, well, we just had the G7 summit here in Kananaskis last summer, and that one was called Op Cadence. But the big thing that I did was what happened just shortly after 2001, we had the crash into the Twin Towers. What a tumultuous time. And back then, when that happened, I was only a lieutenant. I wasn't paying attention to world affairs. I was just a junior officer in the military. So definitely not considering all the factors of everything and how each country, their actions and their aggression might affect our country. So what was my role in that? Well, I didn't deploy. The first people to deploy was the 3rd Battalion of the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. So we have a battalion, the 2nd Battalion here in Shiloh. The 3rd Battalion hangs their hats in Edmonton. So there I was, this young troop commander, and I'm a lieutenant, and the 3rd Battalion had to get run through all of their extensive training. So there I was as a young troop commander, female, not very tall and big, and there are all these ginormous infantry people, and I'm on a range yelling out orders at them. And I'm like, and they had to listen to what I had to do because they were actually going to Afghanistan. So that was probably one of the big things that I'm like, it was impressionable on me. And then after that, Kananaskis happened because of that, Kananaskis was a big deal. It was one of those formulating points in your mind that because of the Twin Towers, we took that security task in Kananaskis for the first time ever as a very, very critical task. We were very seriously concerned about any kind of other attacks that may happen and on Canadian soil. So that made the world become very real to us. So yeah, I did that, and there was a lot of stuff that I did in between. But as I grew and as I changed from the regular force to the primary reserves, which is what I am now, I started taking a very deep interest in political science, and definitely as you grow in rank, like I said, you have to start understanding what's going on and what's affecting you. And so we noticed a lot of trends going on, and Russia was kind of at the head of them. And I think, I'm not sure what brought it to me to feel that Russian impact. But it probably has to do with my family heritage being Ukrainian. So, the move into Crimea and the annexation of Crimea really was something that was impactful. So some of these things are what developed me into who I am today. Fast forward to 2024, I got the opportunity to be able to go to Wiesbaden, Germany, and be able to support the Deputy Commanding General of the NATO Security Assistance and Training Mission to Ukraine. That was a very valuable experience because there I wasn't training Ukrainians. We had people that were training Ukrainians, but I was not. I was sitting with the general from the Canadian Armed Forces who coordinated and did all of the understanding of what the Ukrainian training needs were so that we could create training, hand it down to training institutions throughout all of Europe, and make sure that they were getting all those lessons. So that was like the big pinnacle thing where I watched how strategy played out through the Brigadier General that I worked for, how he would help posture Canada. So I'll open you up later in the evening to questions on that if you'd like to have a few insights on that. But it was really revealing, like, to be in that forum where we had the top chiefs of defense of every country come together and sit and try and figure out the problem. And we could watch different countries in Europe and the European Union and see how they were impacted by Ukraine and what they believed and thought. So a lot of growth, I can tell you, in myself. So who am I? A little bit off of the script of the actual bio that you just read there. So to give you a little bit more understanding of what 38 Canadian Brigade Group is, 38 Canadian Brigade Group is the primary reserve or Army Reserve Brigade that spans all of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario up to Thunder Bay. So all of the primary reserve soldiers that are in those two provinces and up to Thunder Bay and partial part of Ontario are under my command. So not Air Reserve, just the Canadian Army Reserve. So I am responsible for their training right from the start, their well-being, their promotions, their discipline, their administration, making sure they get paid. Soldiers don't like to stick around if they don't get paid. So and in my role as the brigade commander, those are kind of the soldier things that I do. But I'm also in charge of the direction of the brigade, taking the intent of the Army commander, who gets his intent from the Chief of Defense Staff, and making that and drawing that down and saying, how am I going to shape my brigade? How am I going to shape my training to be able to suit what the Canadian Armed Forces needs and what Canada needs? So that is my role. So yeah, I'm responsible for all the, the nuts and bolts of it, but I'm also responsible for the direction of it and how it's going to look, act, and what we're going to embrace and what I need to focus on for my soldiers in support of Canada. So that is what 38 Brigade is, and I'm the person who commands that and is responsible for that. I have a command team partner, or sometimes we call it a fire team partner, and that is Brigade Sergeant Major Joel Peterson. Just a little note on Joel Peterson. He is the first Indigenous Brigade Sergeant Major ever in the Canadian Armed Forces. And he belongs to 38 Brigade. So that's a nice note that we have an Indigenous soldier that made that level of accomplishment in rank. So the Canadian defense policy. How do we create defense policy? So there are three items that help us create defense policy in Canada. And so one of them is the understanding the defense of Canada. What do we need to do to defend Canada? So that is one of the focuses of our defense policy. A second focus is our international partners and our relationships. So think NATO. That is a second part of our defense policy, how we derive it. And the third part of it is emerging threat. What does the emerging threat around the world look like? And don't think about emerging threats as necessarily kinetic threats. Kinetic refers to deadly force, violent force, so war. Think about also the threats of global warming and the environment. So there are many threats, and when they all come together, that that makes it a really complex environment. So those three things are the basis of how the Canadian government derives its defense policy. So who derives defense policy? Well, obviously, the Prime Minister and his person responsible for defense policy, which is the Minister of National Defense, so Minister McGuinty. So together, they will engage with world leaders, with the department, with global affairs as well, and they will assess the needs. Who do they lean on? They lean on the Chief of Defense Staff and her Strategic Joint Staff. So the Chief of Defense Staff advises the Prime Minister on exactly what defense policy, what capabilities we have. So she's not going to tell him defense policy. He's going to take what we need. He's going to look at the threats to our sovereignty, in Canada, to our borders, security. And then the next thing he's going to do is he's going to look at what kind of commitments he has outside of Canada. And then he's probably going to go and talk to his Chief of Defense Staff, who will have all the understanding of what we have to be able to support the mission that we have up and coming. So those are the key group of people that he consults. On top of that, there are a number of other, like I said, global affairs. The RCMP will probably give him a security threat internal to Canada. So it's not just the Department of National Defense. It is a lot of other departments that feed into this. How do we get defense policy? But at the heart of it all comes down to security. Security is the number one driving factor that derives defense policy. And security is a very loaded word. It's kind of like culture. Like, think about the many ways you can define culture. Culture can mean your heritage, what ethnic group you belong to. It can also mean what your organization is like. What's the culture at Brandon U? Well, similarly, security is a very loaded word. We can talk about the security we have in our own homes, the security of our borders, our sovereignty. Our sovereignty doesn't just mean that we own all of our land, but we also own our decision space. So I'll dare say that this last decision that the Prime Minister made not to jump into anything to do with Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, that is him demonstrating sovereignty, right? That is sovereignty. So yeah, security. There's also food security. There is international security, what's going on in the rest of the world. Have you ever noticed articles, or have you ever read, like, many of you probably have Facebook or whatever, and then you see somebody post something, and it's and they're talking about, why are we giving money away to this poor country when we have people starving in Canada? So because it's not just about us in Canada, it's because when other parts of the world are insecure, that increases the insecurity that we have and the potential for insecurity in Canada. And therefore, we want to be a good and helpful player on the world scene. So these are all factors that impact how we make defense policy. And security and our threats from the outside are the key, like the glue that binds it all together. In terms of how do we create our defense policy. So those are the opening remarks I wanted to provide. Does that work?
Works for me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. It sounds like you've mastered political science just fine.
Oh, good.
I avoided math in my undergrad, and I still can't do math, so I'm very impressed. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, Christopher Hunt. Captain, retired Christopher Hunt, is a former Army Reserve officer with 16 years of service. Congratulations, and thank you for your service, Chris. Chris is currently a PhD student in war studies at the Royal Military College of Canada, as well as an instructor of political science in our department here at Brandon University. Chris deployed on Operation Unifier in 2017, contributing to multinational training efforts with the Ukrainian Armed Forces, where his work to revitalize staff training earned him a Canadian Joint Operations Command commendation. Congratulations. Chris holds a Master of Arts in Political Science, in Political Studies.
They just changed it though, don't worry.
They just changed it, that's right, I just caught myself there. From the University of Manitoba, and a Bachelor of Arts Honors in Political Science and Sociology from Brandon University. Chris, give everyone a wave. Great. Okay, thank you, Chris. Now, in terms of tonight's event, it's going to take the format of a fireside chat. That's why we have our guests here at the front, where they're just going to engage in a conversation, just a dialogue about some of the major issues and challenges facing the reserves and really the Canadian military, Canada in general. So I'm thinking that should probably take us maybe till about 7:30 or so, depending on how you feel. And then after that, we can open it up to questions and answers from the audience. So please keep your questions in mind and comments that you might have. And I'm also just going to note that we do have some refreshments at the back, or right over there. We've got some fruit and some cookies and some drinks, so please help yourself during the event. Okay, now I'm going to hand it over to you, Professor Hunt.
Great. I think I'll just maybe to grab the microphone here.
Sure, yeah. I think you're mic'd up, or should they use this? Use that? Okay.
I know we're both pretty loud talkers. We channel it, but just in the back there would be great. Well, thanks, Colonel Kotzer, for coming, firstly, and the introductory remarks. Colonel Kotzer and I have worked together, served together a little bit. When my phone went off indicating she was here, the mic's there. Okay, great. It was still Major in there, so I guess that goes to show it's been a little time since we've been in the same grid square, so to speak. So the point of this event is to really educate folks about the Army Reserve. We were just commenting that Brandon's a real military town. We, of course, have the base in Shiloh there, but right in the heart, right very close to City Hall, right by the police station, is the Brandon Armory, where 26th Field Regiment, Royal Canadian Artillery, has been there for over 100 years. And so the reserves is well part and parcel of our community. We've had great alums of this very university. I think of, say, Kevin James, who's now in the Air Force band, was a student here, deployed to Afghanistan, returned to complete his studies, and went on to do great things. I wouldn't necessarily count myself amongst the illustrious alum here just yet, but working on it. But that's the role of the Army Reserve and the militia recently. But of course, the militia has been here since before Manitoba, before Confederation, and has served all the way through the Cold War, through even before that, answering the call and forming the nucleus of sending units over in the Second World War, responding to security challenges, whether overseas, in Bosnia, Afghanistan, of course. Domestic operations at home. I think of even Rogers Pass in British Columbia. It's a reserve-led task now, I believe, where its artillery fire is used to trigger avalanches to keep that route secure. So these citizen soldiers, armed reservists, who by day are students, have work in industry and business and all factors, they put that aside, put on their uniform part-time, but they answer the call as well when called upon. So I guess my question, open it up, Colonel, I'll stop talking now and throw it to you, is that's the role of the Army Reserve in the past, and it is, the Army Reserve and the militia has stood up to serve Canadians. What is staying the same, and what's changing in our new security environment?
Well, thank you very much for the question. So you're very right, that is the Army Reserve of the past. So there's a few things that are changing. And these are, again, to meet the strategic needs of and the direction of the Canadian Armed Forces to better respond. Canada is a contribution, in terms of military action, we're a contribution nation. We don't go and typically lead things or be the first one in, although I think we're doing a great job in Latvia, but our nation is known as a contribution nation. So we want to be able to be better positioned to mobilize. So currently, the way that the Canadian Army has the way it's set up is that we have regional headquarters, so or regional divisions. So we have a regional division here out west, so that is that Thunder Bay all the way to the BC, including BC. Then we have Ontario, we have Quebec, and we also have Eastern Canada, the Maritimes. So we have those those specific 4 different divisions. What's going to happen with the primary reserve is, and they have primary reservists in each one of those divisions. They're going to be reorganized. So through modernization and Army modernization, we are taking all of the reserve brigades. So I'm one of the brigade commanders. There's 10 of them across Canada, and they're grouping them underneath 2 Division. 2 Division actually falls in Montreal. So my new boss, as of September 10th, will be the division commander in Montreal for what is known as 2 Division now. We will be called the Defence of Canada Division, and our role will be the sovereignty and defence of Canada. So that is something new. Now, does that change what the role of the primary reserve or the Army Reserve is? For the soldiers on the floor, even up to the unit command teams, not so much. But it's going to be how we are organized, and there are a few other changes. So we'll have a different headquarters. The regular force, they're going to be falling under the new division called Maneuver Division, which is in Edmonton, which is my current division. Headquarters is in Edmonton. But all of the regular force, so the 3 Canadian Mechanized Brigade Groups, are all going to fall underneath where 3 Division is now in Edmonton. So that's just to give you some ground and understand that. So what's going to change for the Army Reserve and for the people in Brandon Armory? Like I said, their basic soldier task, not going to change much, but what will change is that we are standing up what is called a composite Arms Reserve Battalion. And these Composite Arms Reserve Battalions are actually going to be full-time employment for reservists, so that they can, so we're building a capacity to be able to mobilize and be able to answer the call and threats. Currently what happens is if, let's use, we'll call it, so it's called Operation Lentis whenever we have a fire and we're doing a fire fighting or floods. So what happens is we'll send out an immediate response unit, that's called an IRU, and that is a regular force unit. So sometimes it's one RCHA here in Shiloh, and they will go initially and hit the ground running because they're regular force. They work all the time and they know they're on notice, and something happens, boom, we initiate that, we send out the IRU. But what we want to be able to do is create that capacity within the Canadian Army or within the Army Reserve. But what's one barrier to being able to send our reservists immediately out the door? It's the fact that they're part-time. Most of our soldiers are part-time. And I will not say only part-time, because when you consider that our reservists are people that are professors, teachers in high schools, some of them are police officers, some of them are insurance brokers. There are people that are in and running and like around your communities. Some of them are running your communities. They're super wonderful people. And then on top of that, at the end of the day, when they're tired and they want to go home and have supper, instead, what do? They throw on their uniform and they go and train. So the problem with immediately having an IRU that's based off of the reserves is that these are all part-time people. It's hard to go from today to deploying them in 72 hours. It's very difficult to do that. The regular force, they're ready to go anytime, especially when we have an IRU designated unit. They just boom, up and go. So with this new composite Army Reserve battalions that we're going to have, we are going to be able to, we're going to take reservists and actually have them on full-time contracts. Now, this isn't standing up like to its full capacity in the near future at all. There's a lot of recruiting that has to go along the way, and there are still some concepts within this well, it's CARB for short, within this CARB that have to be ironed out. So we are in the process of Army modernization. It is moving fast, and yet it is also moving slow. So we are going to, from last year when General Wright, who is the Army commander, Lieutenant General Wright, briefed us, he is basically 1 year later, we are going to be a whole new Army structure. That is a fast movement for an Army. However, there are some things that are going to take time, and one of them is like building the people. I'll hand that over. Was that good?
That's a great start.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to I don't want to quote General Wright wrong. So it's words to the effect of the Army that we have now is not the Army we need, and so that bold direction is very much behind inflection point 2025. And if you were in my defense policy class, you may want to Google and read that at some stage. I wonder if we can build off that idea of this model here, because I had on my list here of topics to touch on is the whole DomOps piece, and maybe you can build on why assign that to the Defence of Canada Division and the importance of taking this off of the Reg Force and the IRU piece, and how that fits into maybe the changing security environment.
Well, as we know, the world is getting more hostile, uncertain out there right now. So it was bad enough having Ukraine and the illegal invasion of Russia into Ukraine and fighting that war. But now we've seen that we've got this whole Iran and insecurity in the Middle East, and there's a full-out war basically happening there right now. So in order for Canada to be able to respond with a force that can operate at the division level, the decision was made to have the regular force under this maneuver division that could mobilize and operate as a division, which has not been done since World War II. So after World War II, there was a lot of like disarmament we drifted into a different model and shaping of our Canadian military, but it scaled down quite a bit. Instead, we're in a place where the reality of mobilization is on our doorstep, and we need to be prepared to take on mobilization. So that is the why we need to focus and have the maneuver division focused on warfighting and mobilization, wherever, and we're thinking overseas and everything like that. So what I want to make sure that is crystal clear, though, is that this Defence of Canada division, do not view it as the fires and floods division, that we're only doing domestic operations. It will be part of our mandate to take that on, but do not kid yourselves. The intent of the Defence of Canada division is to defend Canada. This division is going to be ready to mobilize in the case of a threat or threats against Canada domestically. So we have there's a couple other things that go with it. So it's the IAMD, I'm trying to think about what the I is, my apologies, but it's the Air and Missile Defense.
Integrated, yeah.
Integrated Air and Missile Defense, integrated with the Air Force that we're working with. In fact, we have Army officers that are attached over with the Air Force right now that are doing the planning for an air and missile defense of Canada, which is extremely important. We're looking at how do we defend Canada from the skies, because we're looking at a world where we always used to feel safe because we were across the ocean, but that distance is no longer safe anymore. We also, there are other threats, cyber threats that we have to deal with, and so all of these capabilities are being grown throughout the Canadian Armed Forces. But in terms of, to answer the question of the floods and the DOM ops and why pin it with Defence of Canada, it's because we need a division that can mobilize overseas. We need a division that can mobilize in Canada. Both of them have their focus. The one that is in Canada and focused on Canadian defence will also take care of those environmental threats that we experience more and more often. Like, when do we not have a fire in Western Canada? When's the last time, really? And so that is the reason why it's parceled out like that, and it's divided up like that into the new division structure. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you didn't catch it, Dr. Rick Baker here, who is an IR specialist, had a surprise face when you dropped the truth bomb that since World War II that we've been at the brigade level only. And of course, now we see everything we're seeing from the contemporary security environment and large-scale warfare in Ukraine is that division is the minimum formation to be moving around in as we return to major combat operations. Sort of on that note, Colonel, you touched on the idea that the Defence of Canada is not the Fires and Floods division, but there is certainly a tension between training for domestic operations and response there, and conducting the training around, I'm not sure if we still have mission tasks for units, but I wonder if you can talk about what that looks like on the day-to-day basis or at the unit level to ensure this Defence of Canada division has all the capabilities and the training it needs.
Because I'm sure the plan's fully solidified, right?
No, but so in terms of the competing priority of domestic, domestic operations, or DOM ops for short, and then combat and being ready for combat operations. So that's another thing that we all have to make sure we understand, is that the primary reserve, the Army Reserve, is still training for combat operations, and that is our primary focus, because there is a lot more work that goes into combat arms or combat operations than going into fires and floods. Fires and floods, like, there's planning, but we do that. We can use our planning tools and our planning courses that we have that teach staff officers how to plan. We can use those that for combat just as easily as we can use them for domestic operations. If you can use it for combat, so we're talking about moving. About moving a company of soldiers into a remote location to take on a fire. Well, we move a company of soldiers into a location to do combat. It's the same kind of maneuver. It's the same type of logistics. You all have to think about where are they going to eat? What are we going to do with people who get injured? What are we going to do with vehicles that break down along the road? So repair and recovery. We have to think about all of those things in combat, and those are the same things that we have to think about for domestic operations. So tick in the box there. If we can do it in combat, we can do the logistics piece for domestic operations. But, so domestic operations, there are a couple things, like there are firefighting courses. We don't train our soldiers up to a level 3 qualified soldier. We only, wait, I might have the levels wrong. Level 1 or level 3. One of them is a higher caliber of firefighter that you would get in, like, wildfire capable firefighters. So we don't train them up to that level. We train our firefighters up to a level where they can stomp things out. They can also get ahead of the fire, doing preventative kind of stuff. So there's a couple courses that we can do and teach, and we give our qualifications that we give ahead of the summer season. But we are able to train that easily. The big thing is that if we didn't do combat, preparation for our typical combat operations, whether we're talking about offensive, defensive, any of those things, if we didn't do that, then we'd have a lot more to teach in terms of domestic operations. So that's why we can. So the training delta for domestic operations is not significant enough to cause us any grief in time, in terms of our time allocation. Like, well, we can only spend 6 months on domestic operations because we have to do another 6 months on like military combat operations. So that's why it's not as big of a competing factor.
Yeah, Colonel, I guess we've yet to encounter a fire that's a thinking adversary, and I pray that we do not, right? Versus, of course, in combat, the enemy has a vote, as we always say. I wonder if you can talk a bit then about equipment and not too heavily down the doctrine rabbit hole here, right? Mm-hmm. But certainly I've been long enough to have sort of the last tier of equipment compared to the Reg Force, and certainly it's a spending bonanza these days. So I'm curious what that might look like for the reserves in the future in terms of having the right equipment and new concepts for each unit to have their warfighting task in the Defence of Canada division.
So this is a question that I'd honestly like to give all of you a little bit more on. Because you're sitting there and saying, wow, like there's a lot of defense investment. And so right now there are some projects that are underway. And so we're looking at a precision strike missile capability. That will eventually, it'll make its way, like it's going to get fielded to the Reg Force. And luckily the Reg Force is just down the road for us. But the intent is also, because of the Defence of Canada, for it to also, be for the Defence of Canada. But in terms of like vehicles, and we have a bit of a capability gap and shortfall right now in terms of the reserves and what we have for vehicles and some of our equipment. The one thing I want to talk to you about is we have a new service rifle coming out. And we've had the same rifle since the 90s, or was it? I was lucky. I got, when I started in the earlier 90s, it was there already. But let's face it, I'm already almost 32 years in, and it's the same service rifle that I started with, and we haven't done a modernization or an upgrade on that. So for all of the infantry units, reserve and reg force across Canada, nice quick hits. We are getting a service rifle that is supposed to be issued out to, we're starting with the infantry units right away and combat arms units. So that's a really great hit, quick hit victory. And I don't know if anybody's read Kotter's, the book that, Kotter and his change model? I'm trying to think about the name of it, but the author, I can't remember his first name either, but Kotzer, K-O-T-T-E-R, has this wonderful book that he actually wrote about how do you create change, right? And one of his 8 steps of change is quick hits. So doing things where you get really good wins and then thinking, but you have to think through the process. So the things that the Army commander can do for us right now, like these weapons, that's a quick hit and it's a quick win. Second thing is that we're clothing our soldiers. We are going to clothe our soldiers better. We're going to make us look unified and uniform. And what I mean by that is, has anybody ever noticed, I don't know how often you see the soldiers roaming around in uniform in Brandon, but if you see us in the winter, you're going to see this kind of muted Canadian disruptive pattern kind of, it's called, it's the new color of combats that we have. And then you're going to see this green that's kind of like standing out more like relish. We got relish green on the top and this muted green on the bottom. So we're in a place where our soldiers aren't even uniformly dressed, and that's just what they have. And so the Army commander has one of the other quick hits that he's doing, better equipment. This one's going to take a little bit longer, but still quick. It's not coming out in 2026. But we're going to have uniforms that make us look very unified in our look from head to toe, and we're going to look sharp. The quality of the equipment, we're getting merino wool underwear, and the Army commander said, it's funny, his quote, he's like, I can't believe I've talked about underwear as much as I've talked about. But it's one of those things, like a quality underlayer, because where are we operating? In the north. We are a northern country, right? And we're operating more and more in the north. When my soldiers were up in the Arctic Response, like the Arctic Response Company Group, ARCG for short, when they were up north this last time, minus 60. So temperatures went below minus 60. They were like minus 50 without the wind chill.
And ready to fight, right?
And ready to fight. So guess what doesn't work up north in minus 60? The equipment likes to not work so well. So there's a lot of development. That's the same for everybody. It's not Canadian equipment. That's the north is the great equalizer. But that's the thing, is we're getting equipment. We're getting some quick hits in terms of uniforms for our soldiers. The rest of it, though, that is one of those things where I said things are slow moving. The modernization is happening quickly. We are going to be in new divisions by the 10th of September. However, what the Defence of Canada division looks like and our exact what do we need to fight, that is still being worked on. So I don't have a solid answer on that one for you.
What I'm hearing is we're getting a bleeding edge look in here, and certainly, correct me if I'm wrong, but also part of that, I don't remember the acronym here, but I'm old enough to know clothe the soldier. That's a while back now, right? But also a bigger focus on sizing and female body type as well. So it's not just a comfort thing, it's also protection as well. So certainly ensuring everyone can serve, so that's good to see. I wonder if we can, if I can try and do a 2-for-1 here. You talked about mobilization. And that's certainly, I think, become a very important topic as the kind of Cold War and post-Cold War war is going to be quick, sharp, over before you know it, come as you are, reg force, a couple reserve augmentees, and that's it. Model seems to have not been the case in Ukraine, certainly. We're over 4 years into a 3-day invasion, and in other theaters as well. So the idea of mobilization and sustainment of a fighting force, for the reg force, that's one thing, certainly, but I wonder what thinking is going on in the primary reserve, and potentially even in relation with the supplementary reserve, on what mobilization might look like going forward, rather than the individual odds and sods augmentees model.
So I can't comment on the supplemental reserve. That one's not, it's being worked on obviously at the strategic level right now. And I know that the Chief of Defense Staff has made comments. I've seen the articles, and some of them I don't think I don't appreciate the light that they paint our Chief of Defense Staff in, because she is a brilliant woman who is, I think, doing a wonderful job for all of us. And for Canada. But in terms of the primary reserve and what does that look like for us, so in terms of current operations, so we have 2 major current operations. That's Op Reassurance, and that is in Latvia. And so that's that show of force training with our international partners in Europe, and with NATO specifically, and that's that, like, we're putting a nice show of force right on that eastern edge, right across the border from Russia. So that one's really important. It has the most number of soldiers dedicated to it right now. It's the biggest contribution. Right now we're at 20%. Op Reassurance runs at about 20% of the soldiers are primary reserves. We do not see that going down in the near future. So, and a lot of it's individual augmentation, but a lot of it's they have a light infantry battalion surge. That's a specific. So this past fall there was a specific exercises where they needed light infantry. Well, all of our primary reserve units are light infantry. And so what did they do? They sent a call out to my brigade headquarters. We'd like to know what soldiers, if soldiers would like to go to Latvia to train within Latvia for 1 month, because they needed more soldiers for the exercise that they were operating on. And so 38 Brigade had a ton of soldiers. So we had several of them. We are a little bit privileged in 38 Brigade and specifically Saskatchewan, because we have we have a direct fire support task that is involves having like a 50 cal, so direct fire support on a position. It's a really great mission task because soldiers love it. You're using like really high-powered machine guns, like heavy machine guns, and it's just something they enjoy. They really enjoy. And it's a satisfier. It draws people in. It keeps people in. But what did it do? We always train our direct fire support training. We always train in with the regular force. In fact, we have our exercises and they join us, which is really cool. It's usually kind of the other way around. We try to augment the reg force, but instead the reg force kind of comes in and joins us. And that creates really positive relationships. So because of that, we had a significant contribution for this light infantry surge that we needed in Latvia in the fall. So that's going to be there. So sometimes we're going to be sending, it's not just onesies and twosies. Sometimes we're going to be sending sections. Maybe sometimes we get to send a platoon if we have a platoon's worth, where they will have a platoon go and augment. In the future, the intent is to be able to have the primary reserve to augment up to the battalion level. So that's that would be a pretty big, significant change, because right now we don't send our primary reserve battalions across the sea to own an operation or to be the one flank of an operation or whatever.
And just to be clear, folks, that's hundreds of soldiers.
That's 300, 300 and some, yeah, if you're talking about an infantry battalion. So that's a significant contribution, and that is what we are aiming for. But in the near future, I think one of the concerns our soldiers had was, am I still going to get to deploy? If I'm in defense of Canada, does that mean I'm stuck in Canada? The answer is no. We have to grow. Growth doesn't happen overnight. Growth is going well, but we still don't have the people that we need to support all the missions. And I talked about reassurance. Unifier is another one. On my tour, we had more than 20% primary reservists. In fact, for the general that I worked for, there were 4 of us lieutenant colonels from Canada. 3 of us were primary reservists, and 1 of us was a reg force. Lieutenant colonel's a pretty high rank. That's a heavy build. To take 3 lieutenant colonels from the primary reserve and send them over to work for the deputy commanding general is a very significant contribution. So, we're doing really well in terms of primary reserve supporting these missions.
Well, it's great to hear the direction we're going. That's significant growth as well. To kind of go back to that, so that's the sort of steady state continuous operations. What sort of thinking is going on right now, though, in terms of major war mobilization planning, if any, to kind of update our models from the Cold War sort of paradigm? I think we know from, I'll stall a little before you can think about how you want to answer this. I think we know even at the political level, things like the war books have not been updated at the very, very senior level for a while. And there's a lot of discussions on what mobilization, not just of the armed forces would be, calling up reserves, et cetera, but even in terms of economic mobilization, it certainly is an ongoing discussion point. So one that's being considered by a lot of smaller middle powers.
So this one is not my area of expertise, I'll be very honest with you, but one thing that comes to mind is the defense industrial base strategy, and we just published it. It just got published in February. That's probably a key thing that was missing. We did not have a defense industrial strategy that supported mobilization in Canada that we needed. So that was something that was very deficient, and that was something that we definitely needed. The importance of the defense industrial strategy is that it also is something, a strategy that supports industry in Canada. So there's a certain percentage of that industrial strategy where it has to, like, the investment has to go into Canada. And the other thing about the investment strategy is in Canada, we try not to localize it or make it too pinpoint. Think about how detrimental it would be if our defense industrial strategy gave all of the investment into companies in Ontario. Well, what do you think everybody else, there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of financial opportunity. So to create a healthy Canada, and this is in terms of security, this is that circular thing where if we want investment and buy-in from all of Canada, then we need to also, that defense industrial strategy also needs to identify that we're investing throughout all of Canada in various sectors, and that there's a certain percentage. So those are some of the key concepts of it. And that is, and the good news is that they're already there. That is something that is created. It's now standing it up. So the plan or the strategy is there. It's the recognition that it needs to be done, and now the follow through is where we're at. But in terms of mobilization at scale, that is something I have not studied, nor do I have that level of expertise to be able to support you in this question.
So I'm hearing that's a policy paper idea for my class, maybe, and then we can fire that into D&D and solve all the problems. Well, thanks, Colonel. I think I'll have awesome. 2 more questions. I don't want to monopolize the time here. So I'll throw this question to you, and I'll have one more after this as well. And I'm going to just preface by saying, for those, again, defense policy students, We're not trying to get Colonel Kotzer into a civil-military relations minefield here. Okay, we got some laughs back there. That means people are paying attention in class. That's good. So we certainly, and I can say this as a supplementary reservist, civilian essentially, we of course are seeing friction politically with the United States at the highest levels. But I'm curious, Colonel, if you can talk to the military-to-military relationship, which is often insulated or different, and we hear about the profession of arms across nations. Certainly something I experienced in Ukraine in 2017, and I don't speak a word of Polish, but we can all get along as soldiers here. So I'm wondering if you can talk about the military-to-military relationship we have with the United States, and perhaps with some of our other NATO partners.
Okay, so I have to say that our relationship, military to military, has not changed. It is strong. While I was in Wiesbaden, regardless of what we were hearing in the news, that was not the focus. The focus of the United States military members that I worked alongside in Wiesbaden was to support Ukraine and that Ukraine mission as best as possible. And everybody was focused on that, right from the most junior to the senior level. So that was really refreshing, and it was really good because, it didn't feel maybe the country was going that way, but I can tell you militarily. So in working with our American partners, it was a very positive experience, and there was no sense that they were giving up on us. So this is really good news. Down now to the Canadian level, I've got my own personal anecdote to work to provide you on that. So 38th Brigade, like I said, we go all the way to Thunder Bay, Ontario. There's not much flat land there, and so we don't have any rifle ranges or like training ground or like we call them range training areas, RTAs. We don't have those in Thunder Bay. So do you know what the closest training base is? It is it's Camp Ripley in Minnesota, and it's still like a 6-hour drive, but we will drive 6 hours. It's a little closer than it is coming all the way to Winnipeg or especially Shiloh. But for Thunder Bay soldiers, that's where we will take them. And right now, I have an exercise going on in Camp Ripley, and I have, in the last week, I've trained over 170 soldiers, and by the time I'm done, I will have over 300 soldiers that will do all of their weapons training. All of their minimums for every trade. The trades all have different levels, but they'll all meet their levels. And they'll also do like teams, so they're going to do their individual training, but they're also going to do team firing as well. So that is really important. And that partnership we have in Camp Ripley, that hasn't changed. They are super supportive. They work super well with us. We want them. The coolest thing, sometimes we have these young privates, they get trained, they're only a private, and guess what? They go down to Camp Ripley, and they are being escorted around in helicopters that we have no idea what it's the joy that they have. I'm like, I'm a brand new private, I'm in a helicopter, in the Blackhawks, I haven't been in a Black Hawk, and I've got privates that have been in Black Hawks more than me. So anyway, that relationship, though, is very strong. It's very focused, and it's very collaborative with each other. I'm very happy to say that. In terms of our other NATO allies, let me tell you, working in Wiesbaden really opened up my eyes. How would it be? I was really impressed with the working environment. Focused. Everybody was all the nations were very positive in their working with each other, and I know that, and I'll say this, sometimes our military is one of the smallest ones. Right now, Ukraine has one of the biggest militaries, but Poland, they have a formidable military. Poland has put a lot of money into their military in the last 20 to 30 years. They put a lot of money into their country. And so they have really great, well-trained, well-equipped people. And so sometimes you sit there and you walk into that environment, you wonder, okay, what are they thinking of us Canadians, right? But you know what? They are focused on the fact that we are there. So that strategic partnership of being there and being present is very important. And another significant piece of it is the fact that the Deputy Commanding General of Training is a Canadian. The key staff are Canadians. The training, the J7 or the specific J training officer is a German colonel, and then various staff throughout are Poland, France, Italy. It's but everybody there is focused on the mission and work really well together. So it was such a privilege to work in an environment, but the respect was really felt. It was really felt, and to be on that mission, and that Canada was a contributor. So that was really, really a great experience, and that's my personal feeling of it.
Well, it's great. I remember bumping into Poles who were bringing up us cooperating in World War II. So that's certainly something they remember. So I'm glad that we're able to continue that tradition of working together. One quick one, and then we'll open up to a little bit of audience Q&A. I think we'll have about 10 minutes for that. Just noting we have a lot of folks who are, maybe they weren't initially, but now they're interested in defense policy, young folks here, women and men. I wonder what advice you might have for them as they consider their careers in an environment where defense is far more salient to Canada.
Are you asking me if I should encourage
Sales pitch time. Go for
sales
it.
pitch? Unselfish sales pitch here. So there is a lot of investment going into defense right now, and we're seeing very exciting equipment that is definitely happening, and a lot of excellent opportunities. So like I said, there's this whole CARB concept, which is going to offer full-time jobs for reservists who want to take them. And some of it's going to be the traditional, like all the units will have the traditional part-time. I parade on a Tuesday night, and then I go in on my 1 or 2 weekends a month, and I learn my trade and my skill. But those opportunities are out there, and the money is there to be able to increase the numbers. So if anybody has actually considered it or wondered what it's like, I'd say give it a try. You can go on forces.ca and there's a link that takes you straight to recruiting, fills out, there's a form, it's all there. But right now is an exciting time to be in the Canadian Armed Forces because we are seeing so much promise, we're seeing a lot of great things coming to us. So, and just from my own perspective, I never expected to be here for 32 years, not at all. And being a brigade commander, definitely that was not on my bingo card. But if you don't want to join the military and be like a full-time military and be regular force, that's one of the beauties of the primary reserve. Yeah, I did do the regular force thing, but then I ended up, you heard the bio of 4 kids, and that was my big decision point. I wanted to be, instead of being full-time military, part-time mom, I wanted to be full-time mom, part-time military. And it enabled me to have an actual career. So, if any of you have had it cross your mind, take a look at it. Go to forces.gc.ca or forces.ca, and that'll get you somewhere. But yeah, it's a really exciting time in Canada to be in the Canadian Armed Forces.
Well, thanks, Colonel. I think, Dr. Simons, you can probably open up for a little Q&A if you can.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll hang on to the mic here.
Okay, great. Yeah, we've got about 10, maybe 15 minutes for some questions or comments. Don't be shy. Who's got something they'd like to say or ask? Either of our guests up here? Kayla, great.
Sure. So hopefully you can hear. So just as we were talking here, do you think the lack of commitment to NATO in previous years, or not being able to put in the 2% that has been required for our stance in NATO, do you think that's kept us from being at the level of mobilization we've maybe needed, or do you think that the mobilizing now, or the recent wanting to mobilize, is more connected to international tensions? Like, how does that tie into our mobilization? Does that make sense? I kind of just scribbled it down at the end here, so it's like a...
It's a really great question. So, so basically, what is the impetus of the 2% now is and or mobilization? Is it because, and why? So the 2% not hitting that target, definitely, we don't have, like, it's like the Army commander said, the Army we have is not the Army we need. So I think I think one of the big factors is the tension in the world. The Army we have cannot meet that requirement to mobilize at that divisional level. And that's just because we've been, we kind of were in this mold, this cookie cutter way of doing things, and it worked for us and we were good. We could contribute, but we were like a contribution nation in terms of warfare. And, but that's not, we're going back to warfare like we experienced, but with greater technology. So it's really, it's a forcing function for us as the Canadian Armed Forces and the Canadian Army to rethink on how we should look. The 2% right now helps us achieve that. So I won't go into answering whether I think the 2% is one of the reasons why we're not there or whatever. I don't think that's the reason why we're not there, but for sure it's the global environment that we're living in right now that has made us realize that we are not where we need to be as an army in terms of our structure to be able to fight that future major combat operations.
Thank you.
That was a great question. Thank you.
Yes, got a question?
Oh, wow.
How many times a year do you train, and what type of training do you do?
Oh. So, yeah, as a reservist? Okay. So as a reservist, we train from our regular training season or year. It starts in September and it goes until May. And within that training, that training period, that the units are all, we call it being stood up. That's when they have to get all of their weapons training, but then they also have to do their combined training as well. So, and then sometimes the units get together and do completely combined arms training. So, so there's individual training and all of your things like your individual weapons, doing gas huts. We still practice the gas hut and go in there and the gas hut. The gas hut is like a little building. They have these little tabs that they throw in water, heat up, and it makes this gas. The gas is nothing that's going to kill you. It's just not very comfortable. It makes your eyes burn, makes your nose burn, makes anything that's moist burn. And so what they do is we get on our suits and we have our gas masks and we have to walk into a room. They'll throw the pellets in, and as soon as you get that first whiff of gas, you have to whip out your gas mask, and in 9 seconds or less, you have to get properly on, make a proper seal with your canister, and then you can live and exist. You walk around. Sometimes they make us sweat, and they make us do circles, like running around the little room, just to feel the effects of it. But we do that. We do that on a regular basis. So within that September to May cycle, we have to do all of that individual training. We do collective training. So, for infanteers, it's not just me firing my one weapon down the range. It's me and my fire team partner now taking tactical bounds, walking up, moving up the range, sometimes doing defensive exercises. So that's what they're doing. And we have to get all that done within the normal training cycle. Then what happens is May shows up. And on the 1st of May, we have what is called a full-time summer employment. And it's a program that we have for reservists to give reservists in their first 4 years of their military careers the opportunity to get more in-depth training. And we will employ every reservist in their first 4 years if they want to. This is one of these optional things. You don't have to do it. Maybe you have a job at McDonald's and you like that better, but you have the opportunity to work in a military environment all summer long and get your training courses done that are specific to your trade. So in that period, one of the reasons why we stand down the units in that period from May to the end of August is so that those soldiers that are in our units now train the new soldiers. And they do all their basic military qualifications or basic military officer qualification courses. So, and then when September happens, we stand back up again and we start with ranges and gas huts, and then we do collective training. So yeah, that's how the cycle works. Yeah.
Do you have any close combat session?
Close
combat.
Like close quarter combat?
Close combat, yeah. Close combat training? Is
So
that
there is a course, and it's called CQCB, Close Quarter Combat Training. And that's a specialty course. And one of our units has the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders of Canada in Winnipeg. They have a few resident experts who have the instructor qualifications, and over the Christmas break, they run those courses so that and not everybody does it, but some soldiers are interested in that. It's not a mandated course that you have to have, but some soldiers do that and take that course.
Others, yeah.
Yeah, maybe one more question we've got time for.
If no one else will, I will ask.
Right,
Okay,
sure, go ahead.
So I tried to prepare this one a little bit better so it wasn't such a word bomb. So you'd mentioned the importance of health and security at home. Going deeper when considering policy, how important to defense is a healthy home environment and mental health to be able to ready soldiers or reservists or otherwise for combat or deployment? And would you say current attention to the matter is sufficient, or how could it improve?
That's a good question.
That is an excellent question. She gets 3 gold stars.
There you go. Maximum participant points go 8
No,
for
that's
this
a
one here,
phenomenal question because, I think the army of the past, it was like you put your head down and you did your job and you didn't ask questions. There used to be a joke that if the military wanted you to have a wife, they'd issue you a wife, or a spouse or whatever. But now we recognize that the best soldiers have health in many domains. Number 1, physical fitness. Number 2, mental fitness, spiritual fitness, social fitness. So we monitor those things now. We actually have so many programs that we offer, and because I'm in Winnipeg and 17 Wing, which is the Air Force base, is there, we've got a full realm of resources, but there are courses that you can take to learn about healthy eating and how to properly fuel yourself as a soldier. We call them padres. We have padres that are within, we try to have one every unit. That's one of the things my brigade is recruiting for, is to try to get a padre in every unit. And it doesn't mean padres always have this religious kind of aspect to them, but they're also they respect the fact that not everybody's religious. So if you just need to talk to somebody, but it's so that people have that spiritual health and mental health outlet. We also have programs where we train sentinels, people who recognize when others are struggling, people that are trusted. Those people that for some reason they just are that good human that everybody likes to talk to. Well, we kind of identify some of those people. They do a sentinel training the mental health needs, not completely, they're not mental health social workers, but just when somebody's got a problem, like I have a problem with my chain of command. My boss is just, I feel like I'm getting picked on. I'm going to talk to somebody that I feel like I can trust. That doesn't mean they go running to the chain of command. It's just an outlet for them to be able to, be able to express themselves. So we are doing way better on that. Are there things we can do better on? For sure. We are trying to build a culture in the Canadian Armed Forces now of respect. I think that's one of the underlying things. Next week I'm going to Calgary. I'm on a panel of modernization, mobilization, and culture. And Dr. Hunt's going to see me there. And so I'm on that panel because I have had to deal with some significant mental health cases that basically blew up in 38 Brigade's face and problems. And it came down to respect and treating people with dignity. So, and it's a touchy environment because think about it. We want to put people under training. We want to put them under pressure. We want them to perform under pressure because we want people that can handle it. We also need to learn how to develop their mental resilience. But I'm going to ask you, do we want soldiers that are confident in what they are doing and know what they're doing, they walk up to a task and they do it, or do we want people who are scared of screwing up? So we have to create a little bit of a hostile environment because we need them to be rushed. We need them to be able to think through problems under pressure. But these old days of singling somebody out and making them into the pariah of the platoon, those days are over. They have to be over. That doesn't build soldiers. We think it does because that's what we see on Full Metal Jacket, but that is not the culture that we want in the Canadian Armed Forces. I want the soldier that knows what they're doing and is not scared of. I want a soldier that knows what they're doing as opposed to somebody who is scared of screwing up.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, there's no way can any better than that, right?
Thank you. I'll take this.
Yeah.
So thank you. That was just so wonderful and so educational. I'd like to invite our Dean of Arts, Dr. Gregory Kennedy.
And former brigade commander and enjoyer of gas huts as well.
Oh my gosh.
I'm really happy to have the opportunity to thank our guest, thank Chris and the Department of Political Science for organizing this event. I was the 37th Brigade Commander in Atlantic Canada between 21 and 23. We had no regular force brigade, so we were doing IRUs in St. John's.
Yeah.
Completely snowed in, fun stuff like that. So many echoes, stories I could tell. I got to do a lot of great training, but I think what you finished on, the significance of the work around culture, supporting our soldiers, equipping them. I'm probably the only person in the room who understands the pure scope and weight of the job that you have as a part-time person with full-time responsibility. And let's be clear, one of the most senior officers in the entire Army, not just the Army Reserve, that you have the privilege to hear from tonight. So thank you so much, Colonel, for making the time and telling us a little bit about what's going on. I didn't get to see some of this new stuff, but it's pretty exciting.
Very exciting. Well, thank you.
So in the Army, we have the tradition of regimental coins. I have created one for the Faculty of Arts.
Oh.
So if you'd like to come forward, I would love to present this to you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
We got Brandon University seal, and then the Faculty of Arts, which is Clark Hall, where's Clark Hall? Right across there, which is our original building back in the 19th
wonderful.
century. So I'll give this to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This is how we do it.
That's right. Yep.
Thank you so much. All right.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you so much, Colonel, for coming, and Professor Hunt for organizing this. Thank you for your service on behalf of all of us here in Canada. We so appreciate it. And another big round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.